பறக்கின்ற புள்ளெல்லாம் நான் மண்ணில் திரியும் விலங்கெல்லாம் நான் கானில் வளரும் மரமெல்லாம் நான் கானில் வளரும் மரமெல்லாம் நான் காற்றும் புனலும் கடலுமே நான் காற்றும் புனலும் கடலுமே நான் gari ga 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 gari ga ga gari ri ga ga gari ri sa ni sa pa ni sa ri ri gari ga pa gari sa ni sa ri ga pa gari sa ni sa ri ga pa gari sa ni sa ni ri sa pa ni sa ri ri gari ga gari sa ni sa ri ga ga pa gari sa ni ri sa pa ni sa ri ri gari ga gari sa ri ga pa ri ni sa pa ri ni sa ri sa gari pa ma ga gari ri sa ni sa ri sa pa gari ga pa sa ni pa pa ga gari ri sa ri ga pa ni sa 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 ni pa gari ga pa ni sa ni ga ni pa ni sa ni sa ni sa ni sa ni sa ni sa ni pa ni sa ni ga ni pa ni ga ni pa ni sa ni sa ni ga ni sa ni pa pa ga gari ri sa ni sa ri ga pa ni sa ni ga gari ri ga gari ri ga gari ga gari ri ga gari ri pa pa ga gari ri sa ri ga gari sa ni sa ri gari ri ga gari sa ni sa gari ga gari sa ni sa pa ni sa ni pa ni sa ni sa ni pa gari sa ni ri ga pa ni sa ni ga ni pa ri ni ga ri
Sushma, thank you so much for being here on Made in India.
Thank you for having me.
You've come for the day from Chennai just to be on Made.
No, it's meant a lot. Like when actually, like I've been following your program and like when I was actually thinking about Home, the album, I was thinking, oh my God, it would be such a dream to be on Made in India. And then,
are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I really appreciate the flattery. I'm enjoying it very much.
I mean it, yeah.
So I have to say that, one of the things is that like we start off by kind of understanding an artist's sort of origin story. And I feel like there's so much of you that is so typically South Indian. Like you learn Carnatic music from age of 4. That is, come on.
Yeah,
that is
that is actually really painfully very stereotypical. And especially, because I grew up in Singapore, right? And I think for my parents, it was a way of like, okay, we've come to this foreign land and we have to root our daughter to culture and, she needs to know about what we stand for and all that. And what do we do? Okay, let's just put her in Carnatic music. I think that was like their way of like ensuring that I would
imbibe the culture and the Indian traditions.
Yeah, I wouldn't become too Singaporean, whatever that meant. But yeah.
So did you feel, I mean, when your parents kind of throw you into doing something, did you pretty much enjoy it from the start, or did you feel like, oh, okay, I gotta do this?
Oh, I definitely did not enjoy it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, so the thing is, the first 2 years, I really loved it because I loved my teacher. I would really look forward to going to classes, and that would be before my kindergarten and nursery. And I would find every way to skip school because I loved being in party class and music class.
Yeah.
But then after that, I kind of moved to another institution, and it's just, I think it became a thing where like I'd just go weekly and learn, and school kind of took over, and then I realized, oh my God, I actually want to be studying harder and getting better grades, and so my focus kind of shifted to that music just became like something that I just did over the weekends.
You never sounded more South Indian. I feel like I wanted to concentrate on my studies.
Yeah.
And then
pass all the exams, get 99%, 100%. Yeah. Like literally that. Yeah.
Oh my God. So when you're talking about your teachers who you were learning from, because you did come to Chennai at some point and learn, right?
Yeah,
when was
I did.
that?
So I moved, I think, well, no, I didn't move for good, but then I started learning from my guru, Srimati Lalita Shivakumar, I think in 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
At that time, I still hadn't moved to India yet. I just came during my, holidays, school holidays and university holidays and stuff. And the reason I came to her was because she had come to Singapore for her daughter's concert, Nityashri Mahadevan. And so at that time, I just sang in front of her, and she said, you know what, you should come to India and train.
Wow.
So I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been wanting, and I want to do this. And so I moved, and the way she took me in, into her family.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, I think it was the first time I experienced class as like a way of life and not as like a weekly thing that I went for. And so I think that like really made a difference. And then after that in 2009, I moved to India.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, but now you're under someone else, RK.
Sri Ram Kumar.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. And I've been mentoring under him since 2017. And I mean, everything that I sing now, I owe it to all my teachers, but I think the zest and the fervor and like the passion and just like the drive to find beauty in every note, I attribute it to him. Like it's so infectious because when he sings, he just sings it because he just loves every swaram, every movement. And I feel like, oh my God, I want that. I want that in my music.
Oh my gosh. So, and again, since we're going back to the stereotypical South Indian, listen, I'm saying this because I am also a giant stereotype. I'm one of those Malayalis who lived in the Middle East. I am like literally the same. We're like third culture kids. We grew up somewhere else. You come back and you're like, I don't feel from here, or I feel I'm from there. And
got it. Yeah.
So I get it. Like, but I cannot help but make fun of it.
No, you have to take your dig at it. Go for it. Yeah.
So you're also, are you a chartered accountant?
Oh my God. Look, you didn't have to do such good research, okay?
Yes.
Yes, I'm also a chartered accountant in Singapore.
Damn.
So, yeah, I was with PricewaterhouseCoopers, tax.
God damn.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh my God. Yeah, I can't believe that actually happened at some point. Yeah.
Did you? But why chartered accountancy? Like, why? I mean, my dad's a chartered accountant too.
That's exactly why, actually.
Oh, your dad was one too?
My dad is one.
Oh,
so then I was
I'll
like,
do
okay,
like
what do I
did.
do? Yeah, actually, pretty much. I was like, what do I do with my life? Okay, let's just do CA because my dad's a CA. And that's really how it happened. I wish I had more like profound things to say about it, but that's really the truth of it. Yeah.
Did you? So, was there any point in time where you at all enjoyed it?
The chartered accountancy.
Yes.
Oh, every bit of it.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You bloody nerd.
I did. I really enjoyed like seeing people's books and being like, oh my God, they have to pay this much. And especially because I was in taxes.
They didn't do their taxes properly.
Yeah. I really enjoyed all of it. But then what happened was when I was in the Big Four working, I realized that I was just humming and singing all the time, much to the nuisance of everyone around me. And so I was like, wait, what am I doing? I'm young. I mean, back then I was. And I was like, I'm young and I'm here. Like, I should really just take the leap and just do it, just move to India. So I remember, like, I was on the way back home in a bus with my dad after lunch together. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to quit the Big Four. And the look on my dad's face was like, what are you saying? Because it was like a dream of his that his daughter was like working in a Big Four because he's a CA.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I got to do it now. And then that's it. Like within a month, I quit and then I just moved to India.
Man.
Yeah.
But like I know the initial shock when you have to tell your parents something that they're probably didn't realize they were going to hear. But after, did like your parents have any resistance to like you coming back to India and you wanting to pursue music at all?
I think so. I mean, mainly because I think, when you want to choose an artist's life, money is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
But, I have to acknowledge my privilege here. I mean, the reason I could also take that leap was because I knew my grandparents lived there, my uncles and aunts, and there were people to take care of me. And, it wasn't, I would be lying if I said that, I'm starting from zero, because I wasn't.
No,
I had an infrastructure.
Still going to be them on the table.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there was there was a structure in place, right? So, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think my father, my parents were concerned, like, okay, like if she goes, then, what is the monetary situation going to be like for her? Like, can she support herself and all that? So actually, one of the things then, my parents negotiated with me was, okay, you can go there and pursue music, but can you also work at the same time? So to be honest, when I moved to India, I actually worked. I tried to do both. And then it was much later in 2017 that I was like, oh my God, I can't do both.
Do this at the same time.
Yeah, it just wasn't doing justice to either. And so then in 2017, actually just before I met my mentor, I quit. So it's just very serendipitous that I quit and I was like, okay, what am I doing with my life now? And then I met my mentor and then like life just changed around.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's good though. Obviously there was that, like you said, that moment where you switched, where you decided that like, I think I'm done. I've balanced it for some time and I'm out. But I think one of the most interesting things, and this is where I find this super fascinating, is that like you're also very deeply involved in like the preservation of like arts, right? Like especially like traditional, like because you're singing in classical, you were studying classical. What do you feel like? I mean, yes, your parents threw you into it. But what do you feel now is your relationship with, traditional arts and the classical arts or whatever in that way?
I think, you see, one of the things I've learned in my journey with Carnatic music is that even calling it traditional arts and classical arts is debatable. So, because, I mean, really, what is tradition? Is it 100 years old? Is it 500 years old? Yeah. Is it like, a millennium? Like, we don't know. And the thing that I'm learning, about Carnatic music, and a huge thanks to T.M. Krishna for that, is that it's constantly evolving. Like the form that I sing today is not the form that existed, honestly, even like 60 years ago, 100 years ago. It's constantly changing. Even the way a swaram is approached and how it's sung, all of that is changing. And also classical is, again, something that's happened over the centuries. It was a form of music that existed.
It wasn't called classical like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It would have been called modern contemporary music also at some point.
At some point. Who knows, right? So I think I think that was a shift that was important for me. I think growing up, like I mentioned, I didn't like the form because I think precisely because it was handed over to me saying that this is a traditional form or this is a classical form that you need to preserve. And I was like, wait, I can't take on that burden. I have no interest in it. But I think the shift when I learned that, wait, this is evolving and this very much can marry what is happening in my day-to-day life and what I feel, I think discovering that both of them can come together is when, like, I would say, like, the love for the form grew multifold.
But then you also, I mean, in that, I feel like it becomes a toolkit. It becomes something that you use to express yourself in some way.
Absolutely.
Just as you would anything.
Yeah.
Like, I am a writer and I use words to express myself just in that same
Absolutely.
way. So I think, and this is, I mean, I'm really excited about this, which is that I got the chance to hear all of your music, or as much of it as I possibly could. And one of it was that home, I mean, you've talked about home right now. And my favorite songs from your album is The Elephant's Funeral. Oh my God. That is like, holy, like, it's like angry and it's raw and it's powerful and like there's
thank you,
something
Maed.
about it. Yeah. And then Grief, I was bawling my eyes out.
Thank you.
It was such an emotional track. I was supremely emotional, like really, really emotional.
Oh, that means a lot, Maed. Thank you.
No, it was.
Yeah.
It was like I think your music is incredible, and those were the songs that like really stood out for me. And then I really feel your emotion and your voice and everything. So for me, that was listening to Home. I think for me was like fascinating because on the whole, because like I said, when you're listening, I like to experience an album. I listen to it from beginning to end.
Oh, I'm like that too.
Are you?
I can't handle this like shuffle thing and like
it.
listening to 20
I'm
seconds
like,
of a
I
song.
play it, which is why like when I hear a really good song, I like run back to like my phone or my laptop. I'm like, what song? What's the name of that? Because I'm just listening to it from beginning to end.
Right.
And it starts, I mean, the first song that you played today is Nature, which is the first song on the album itself.
Yeah.
And from the beginning, like, so it's kind of like it starts like as though you're waking up in the morning and it's you have this incredible artist who played Manu Delago.
Manu Delago, yeah.
who's
He's an
a
Austrian handpan player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so even like listening to that, like you feel like you're waking up, you're looking out the window, the birds are tweeting. It kind of feels nice and like refreshing and kind of beautiful. And then it goes from like nature to this sort of like there is this sense of like, I guess like anger and frustration. Like
I think
it's like
so.
this like it feels like with Man 1 and Man 2, it's like irritation. Like you feel irritated and it feels like abrasive. And then you have like Ma and Elephant's funeral, and then it's like angry and raw, and then just like and then from that anger and that frustration, it's just like absolute sadness.
Yeah.
That was my journey. I'm done now. Journey home. I'm leaving.
I'm so glad that was a journey you were on because I think that's really, that's pretty much the journey I've been on. I think where when I think about nature and how like I really grew up loving like Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, like I would watch them obsessively. And then, you know, like now when I realize like my everyday choices, like what do I buy? Like plastic, palm oil, Amazon packages on a daily basis and like extreme consumption and waste and everything. And then after that, reading about how it's harming the environment and wildlife conflict, like I think especially during lockdown, it just went to like an extreme, like that frustration and that anger. And I think I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I must do something about it. I must do something about it. And then, you know, you brought up the elephant's funeral. And I think that incident was what actually tipped it off. And I was like, oh my God, I need to make this album now.
Yeah.
Because that song was based on...
For anyone that doesn't know, do you want to... Yeah.
So it's based on a pregnant elephant which fed on a pineapple stuffed with firecrackers in Kerala, where, you know, land had been cleared for agriculture. So there's already like wildlife, human habitat conflict. And so she came out of the forest and they claimed that, you know, the pineapples are usually left for the wild boars to scare them away. But she didn't know that. I mean, and she fed on it. And she just ran around the town berserk and in pain. And then, you know, she found herself in the river later. And then she just died a really slow and painful death. Yeah. And I'm sure there's so many cases that's happening like that in India, but I think something about seeing it and being like, she was a pregnant elephant. Oh my God. And elephants are so sentient. They can feel. I don't know. To me, it just felt like, what have we become?
And
like
it was big in the news at that time.
It was. Yeah.
In a place like Kerala, where like looking after elephants is a really big part, a lot of the mahouts are there. There is... So I think it was a horrifyingly awful story to come from a state that actually
values this and takes care.
And looks after that. It was like, what is happening? And then, you know, it's these stories that like hit you harder because there's probably, I mean, it hit the media and we found out about it.
Yeah.
But there's so many other stories that no
one knows about.
Who will report about an elephant that died? Like no one
cares?
is reporting.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that story was so powerful that at least it came up in the media. And then it's like, then you get to know about what happened in that area with the land and what was happening to that
Exactly.
elephant.
Yeah.
So it's like these one stories. I mean, it's awful because like even for me, I'm like, what is the story?
Yeah. Absolutely. I remember like I was sitting in Singapore during that time because it was lockdown, and oh my God, like I think I just couldn't get over that grief. And I think it started with that elephant at first, but then after that it just became like, oh my God, like how have we come to this place where like compassion is just not a part of us? I think I just couldn't like wrap my head around that. And so like you said, grief was like, actually before recording Elephant's Funeral and Grief, I cried buckets. Like I was actually bawling before I recorded
I could feel it.
Yeah, it just felt so heavy. I was like, I can't sing it without actually, it wasn't just depicting the sadness, but it was like really lived, experienced sadness. And I mean, I must make a huge shout out to my co-creator and producer, Aditya Prakash, for that, for coming on this journey with me and really being able to bring out these emotions through these songs. So yeah, I mean, it was quite an experience.
What's the second song you're going to perform for us today?
Actually, I want to perform Grief.
Oh my God, you're going to be crying. Oh my God, I'm going to be so emotional.
Oh, maybe not. It might sound really happy today. Let's see. Because I'm so happy to be on Maed. Maed
They
in
like
India.
not grieving today. Okay, so the second song is Grief.
The second song is Grief. मैली चादर ओढ़ के कैसे मैली चादर ओढ़ के कैसे द्वार तुम्हारे आऊं द्वार तुम्हारे आऊं मैली चादर ओढ़ के से तूने मुझको जग में भेजा निर्मल देकर काया निर्मल देकर काया निर्मल देकर काया आकर के संसार में मैंने खुद को दाग लगाया आकर के संसार में मैंने खुद को दाग लगाया जन्म जन्म की जन्म 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 की जन्म जन्म की मैली चादर जन्म जन्म की मैली चादर कैसे दाग छुड़ाऊं मैली चादर ओढ़ के कैसे द्वार तुम्हारे आऊं द्वार तुम्हारे आऊं कैसे कैसे कैसे
I was genuinely thinking about anything but crying listening to that song.
Oh my god, that song actually really makes me want to cry every time.
Like
Yeah.
every time. I thought of like, so our wonderful videographer who's sitting right next to me, I was thinking about his face because Jishnu's face makes me laugh. And so I
I
was like,
love that.
anything else? I'm like, what am I going to do for Lollapalooza? What am I going to do? Like, I wonder what my friend's doing right now. There's that art exhibition. Like anything else.
But crying.
But crying. And because I don't know about you, but for me, I feel like since 2020, I have lost all control over my emotions. I just will cry at anything. Not that grief does not, but grief
but I
hits the right
understand.
notes very, very well.
I actually find that change too, and somehow like I feel like I'm welcoming that because people are more like open to being vulnerable, and I
Yeah.
think that's like maybe from here compassion can be born. I don't know. I'm hoping, yeah.
So, talking about your album Home, we talked extensively about, the elephant's funeral and grief, which you just performed. The other songs, and I think you've put parts of the song Man Too in your song Nature.
That's right,
That's
yeah.
at the top of the episode. And one of the things is that there's a lot of like stuff, a lot of S effects of, plastic being crumpled or torn, and then like a steamboat and cutting of trees. Like there are all these like different things that you can kind of hear in the background. And one of the things is that there's also like a conversation between a woman and a man, and like he's like, maybe we should double bag it, and like I want another cup of coffee and
Yeah.
something, and I'm feeling really hot. Why don't you put the AC on? And like all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so when I was listening to that song, and I think everyone comes to music for different reasons. You come because it inspires you. You come to music because you feel sad and you want to be cheered up. You come to music because you're angry and you just want to let out your frustration. So I think people experience music for different reasons. And particularly that track, I would listen to Grief again, especially if I need a good cry. And also if I'm sometimes for me, when I'm feeling feelings, music helps me let the
Yeah,
feelings
it's very
out.
cathartic. I get that.
Music equally as much as like I want to be like, yeah, I want to dance today. Let's put some music on. Like equally, I'm like, I'm feeling sad. I want to listen to something sad. So I know that Grief is something I'd probably listen to again. But the thing with Man Too was that I would never listen to that song again. And nothing against like, the music and everything is great. But I was kind of like, I understand the intention of that song, but I always feel like with music as an artist, don't you want people to listen to your music? And if someone listens to it and goes, I don't want to listen to that again, is that okay? Is that, I don't know.
This is the first time with me releasing something that I've actually been okay to hear that someone can't listen to it more than once.
Really?
And I've taken that as a compliment because you're not the first person to say that. Someone else actually came and told me that I listen to your album, but I cannot listen to it more than once because it just made me feel really heavy. And it's, and I kind of actually take it as a compliment because I think there are some movies I've watched, the only movie I can think of right now is Nayagan in Tamil. It's a Kamal Hassan movie by Mani Ratnam.
Yeah.
I
Mani
watched
Ratnam
it,
films.
and I bawled, and I know I cannot watch it again. But it left a deep impact on me, though. It's like every time I think about like a good movie and like something that like just shook me, like I would think of that movie. So to me, I feel like a part of the intent of this album was also that, like, I really wanted to like just shake up people. And that specific song that you mentioned, I also think part of the reason why people can't hear it again is because I wonder, I mean, like when I hear it, I feel like I feel guilt as well because those conversations that was between me and my co-creator Aditya, and those were like part of our everyday life. Living in Singapore, it gets hot, and then I'm like, wait, I want the AC on. And then during COVID, like he'd be like, oh, I want coffee, and so let me get a coffee with the lid on, and like let me double cup it and then double bag it. It was like everything that like, and shopping, I used to shop like crazy amounts, and like so it was like a reflection of my everyday life. And the intent of the track was also to show that when we think about environmental degradation, it's not just violence, it's not just like a Bolsonaro situation where like people are burning Amazon forests and, it's not like that. It happens in our everyday lives with our everyday choices. So I feel like the moment people hear that and they get it, the only thing I can hope for is that it's left them maybe hopefully thinking like, oh, crap, like that's a part of me in there. Like I played a role in that, And so it's, in some way, if that intent and that message has come through and they can't listen to it again, I actually feel okay.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
kind of
interesting.
liberating for me as well, actually, to not have that burden of, oh my God, I need them to hear this like a million times. I don't,
And fair. And I mean, that was my curiosity about it. Because like I said, I was just curious to understand like how you felt about the fact that you've created something that maybe someone might be able to go through once, but might not be able to, or might not even go through the whole thing.
Actually, I got that too. Someone turned it off. Like I remember the first draft I sent, basically the person was like, okay, I couldn't listen to it more than like 30 seconds. I turned it off. So I was like, oh, okay. Why?
It's like, but that's also interesting because then also sparks a conversation. I never had thought of it that way also.
Yeah.
But and this is the thing, right? And again, I'm always game for like healthy debate, which is that there is, as an individual, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do our part because I think it's important that we do. I also think that it is not only up to an individual. There
100%.
are huge companies that are doing things at a scale that we as individuals don't necessarily have complete control of. And that it's moved from climate change to climate crisis. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So my thing is that even when I'm listening to that song, Man 2, I get the individual side, but I always have this debate in my head that it's like, it's not, I can do only so much. There is only so much I can do as an individual, right? Like to some extent. But there is also some level of powerlessness that you do feel. You can't, like I think the loop that I get stuck in, and I think anyone who has any sense of like identification with nature and sustainability in the environment, you end up in this loop of like weird amount of anxiety and helplessness where you're like, okay, I carry a spare cloth bag with me all the time because I do. I don't like to use plastic. And if I do, I try to reuse it or re-give it or wrap the stuff in it, whatever it may be. But I am constantly in this space where I have to buy stuff off Amazon and I have to. And so you're also in that loop where it becomes very difficult to not like, well, my face will break out if I don't moisturize. Or like it sounds so small and silly and petty. And the thing is that like you kind of end up in this space of where this loss of control, like having a sense of like, am I really making any difference? Do you ever go through that?
No.
I mean...
No, because if I felt that, then I don't think this album would have even happened.
Fair.
And I can't.
Interesting.
And now that the album is over, I'm looking at performing it live, and I feel like if I even have that doubt, then the live has no purpose either.
Yeah.
So I don't. And there's a lot of reasons for that, because I completely agree that, policymakers have they can make the biggest change, really. But I also know that, like, individual voices, I strongly believe it matters, because I think, together, like, individuals together becomes like a community, like a community becomes like a collective, and then that becomes like a bigger voice, right? And I think once it becomes a value, like, for example, like today, like, I know that if I have to vote, I'm not going to vote for someone who does not put like energy, climate change, sustainability at the forefront of their policies. And I think that's only because it's become a value of mine. But if it wasn't a value for an individual, like many of my friends or even family, I don't think they're looking at that. And so they wouldn't vote for that party, right? And so then you end up voting for someone who's actually making choices that's going to harm the environment. So I think it's very important that it becomes a value, because yes, like, I'm still thinking about saving 10 plastic bags a day, but one day I'm hoping that, once in 4 years when the policy, like the elections happen, then I can actually vote for someone who can hopefully make a change. And the second thing is, like, I support a lot of these, like, organizations that, one of them is Sea Legacy, which actually deals with like marine conservation. And like every now and then, they call out for like votes and stuff, saying that, they're trying to increase the marine conservation areas in Costa Rica and around Panama. And I know, like, I voted for those. And then, like, they've actually passed bills now because they managed to get over 100,000 votes over across the world. Yeah. And they submitted it to the, the policymakers. And now they've actually expanded the marine conservation by a certain percentage. And that actually makes me feel like, oh my God, like, I'm this tiny person in Singapore, a tiny red dot, and I could contribute to that 100,000 votes, which is what they needed, right? Yeah. To even increase
you
that.
You feel like you actually have some kind of impact on something.
And so, and also, so, when I'm asked this question, I say, even with, like, forget even environment, right? Like, even when it comes to people, like, I can't make a difference directly to someone in Ukraine. I know that. But I think kindness and compassion, everything starts with, like, things around you at first. Like, I know that I think about the people who, like my household help, my auto drivers on my streets, like whoever I speak to, the cooks, I think about all of them. And when they need something, I know I can extend that help. And I'm just hoping that if everyone can extend that amount of, I'm not saying I'm the pinnacle of that, but whatever.
Even I don't think any of us.
Yeah,
I get
any
it.
of us. We all have our, like, pitfalls, of course. But if any of us can think beyond ourselves, right? At the end of the day, like, I care for the environment, but if someone else can care about something else, which is beyond themselves, beyond just thinking me, myself, and, my life, I think we can already make a difference to the place. And I think that faith and that hope is truly what keeps me going in this, and, like, makes me want to fight even more for this.
No, and I completely agree with you, which is where I agree with you about, like, caring about something beyond yourself. And I think that is, like, literally the most, like, I feel like basic level thing that you could possibly.
Just one other person. Just include that one other person.
Yeah, even for someone. Like, but, like, I get what you mean, where it's just like, right, like, it's such a basic thing. And it's also something that this is where I, like, wholeheartedly agree with you, which is where, when we look at what's taking place in the world today, the most basic idea that you and I are saying base level, it literally looks like no one cares.
Yeah.
Or don't care enough. I mean, it's not like, even like, I mean, we're talking about your music. I don't know if you've heard, there's another artist called Ditty.
Yeah. We're talking about her this morning.
Yeah. And she did like a carbon neutral tour last year. Yeah. And it was super interesting. My partner and I had gone for it. And then I remember at the end of the gig that she did, her manager, someone who was there, sort of came up to us and asked us how we came to the gig. And my partner, we drove. And they were basically finding out how everyone traveled there, because they would offset whatever the carbon emissions of all the people who came, which I thought was fascinating. Because again, like, how you sort of track these things and understand, like, your impact. So the idea was to do a carbon neutral tour. And if people are turning up I was like, oh yeah, all of us who are turning up for the gig would have a carbon footprint too. It's not just about you.
Yeah,
And that's where counting everyone, like you're
amazing.
expanding. So yeah, that's
inspiring. Yeah.
Right. It was really fascinating. And I was really, it was something that I wanted to be you feel like you're a part of too.
Yeah.
You feel like you're going there, I'm supporting someone, they're doing something interesting. I have no idea how they're doing it. But then when they explained it and they did it, I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that that's a way in which you could do it.
That's
and it was
really
like,
inspiring.
And again, it's a step.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure, all of us are trying to figure it out, and we're all trying to do our best. So I agree with you that, like, I don't think you and I are judging each other at all, and I don't think we're judging other people. I mean, maybe a little bit. But like,
I'm just saying, just think about your beyond
people.
yourself.
I mean, geez, guys, this is so selfish. I'm super curious about this because this is a conversation I've had. And again, this is very much like industry specific. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that in the industry that we're in, and we're constantly kind of finding things out. And again, because this is about this, I'm doing a ladies special. There is like an intention around this where when you're looking at an industry that obviously is dominated by men, and most industries are, one of the things that I've had conversations about in the space of the world, I mean, I'm saying the classical world because it is its own entity. It's not the same as Bollywood. Yeah. It's not the same as the independent music scene. It is its own space. Yeah. And a couple of the things that I've seen sort of happen, but in a very sort of small, slow space, is that the Guru-shishya model, right, is a power dynamic. And I know, and there are stories, and there are only things that I've heard, as just as in the independent music scene, when stories come out where there is an abuse of power, and understanding how that affects women particularly. I don't know if this is something like that you have seen or have not or understand, but I know that like the classical space is so unbelievably closed. There's levels of nepotism. There's a lot of that, right? And a lot of people don't speak out because they will suffer some kind of loss, that there is politics, among different people. It gets complicated. Do you think, I'm not saying that you've experienced it, but what is your sort of opinion of that space, especially because I don't get to talk to a lot of like artists who actually live in Mylapore and who are like, you know what I mean, right? It's those spaces. Not everyone experiences that, who also will come and land up in Maed in India, if you know what I mean. So I'm kind of curious about that. I don't know if you have an opinion or if there's...
So I just want to say, like, on the outset that I'm lucky that I've not personally experienced this with my gurus. But this is not to say that I've not experienced this at all. Like, I've faced it in other situations, and even with like people of power from like powerful institutions, which I've also come out with and actually spoken about publicly. Wow. And written about it.
That takes a lot.
But I think even coming out was, like you said, it was a very difficult choice to make. And I remember this was in 2018 October, when people started talking about Me Too in the Carnatic world, and at that time, like I was like, wait, should I? Everyone was talking about the experiences and calling out, and I was like, should I write about my experience or should I not? And then I remember my husband was like, like, if you don't write about it, you're basically being complicit right now. Like, you have an avenue to speak about it now. Yeah. And if you don't, then you just, like, what is the point? Then there's no point blaming just the perpetrators when, like, now you have a chance to speak about it and you won't. Yeah. So then I actually wrote about it, and after that, and then I realized that there were actually multiple others who had also come out to speak against the same person, and then the person was actually then fired from, his position where he was.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't think people realize how much it takes to talk about these things. Firstly, to articulate the experience.
No, it was really hard, me. It was really hard because I know one of the comments, incidentally, that I received also on that post was I forget the exact words now, but it was something along, the whole Me Too movement is just a chance at like 2 seconds of fame for women or something. And then the person went on to say that this was just a WhatsApp that was forwarded to me. These are not my words. And I was reading it. I'm like, if these are not your words, then why are you even saying it here? Yeah. And so then I that was like the second comment on the post. And then I remember like I was in Ottawa at that time in Canada. And then I was like, oh my gosh, should I just remove my post? Like, what if people don't believe me?
Sushma,
Yeah,
like, it's awful how you are made to feel lesser than when you tell the freaking truth.
Yeah. And then there were people from my family who were like, now you've said this, what will people think of you? What would they think that, like that you have done to have demanded that kind of attention, right? Like conversations like that. And so it was not at all easy, but I think it was necessary to also do it, because I think it made me realize that yes, like I would have been complicit, like if I just let it, like even when I had the chance to say something and I just refused to say something. So even if it wasn't particularly with my gurus, for which I'm very fortunate, it doesn't mean that it's not happened. And you're right. I think politics and power and a lot of it like plays a huge role. And I think there are a lot of stories that have not been heard, that have not come out. And
by the way, it's okay if you also don't want to talk about it, because I've also met people who have not wanted to talk about it because they have whatever that they've gone through, they have wanted to move past it. And I would never like. It takes courage to say things, but it's okay if you don't want to. Yeah,
absolutely.
Equal measure.
I mean, because I spoke about one, there were 2 other cases as well, which I chose not to speak about because I couldn't bring myself to speak about it. So it's not to say that, just because you've spoken about it, but it's particularly because this person was in power and it just felt like, at that moment, like I felt like I just had to do it. How is he getting
away with it?
It just felt like, oh my God, like this was really unfair. So, I mean, it's a very delicate space, and I'm sure a lot of it is still happening in the scene right now, in subtle ways, in different ways, right? And I think there's also, like I said, this whole conversation, because it's a closed community, and I know things are changing right now, but it's still a thing of like. I mean, I was going to speak in Tamil, but like, like, what are you wearing? Like, like, are you sure you're not demanding that kind of attention, like unwanted attention? Or like, just don't speak in a very loud way. Just make sure you're quieter. There are all these things that are like put on women more than men, like, because that's,
absolutely.
Because,
women are always told what not to do rather than like, and it's always like, don't talk too loudly and don't say that and cross your legs and don't do this, and why are you wearing that sleeveless thing and why are you wearing that, and this whole idea that we bring it upon ourselves. What is that logic?
And I remember, like, even after all of this, like, then I had come to India, and at that time, like we were just talking, and then one of the people I knew, like when we were talking, the person asked me like, like it was really brave of you to whatever come out with it and stuff. And then I was like, and the person sounded really empathetic, and so I was like, I'm sorry, did something happen to you? And then the person's response immediately was like, no, I never allowed that kind of boundaries to be ever crossed. So, which immediately implied that like I had done something for some boundary to be crossed. So it's a mentality that still exists. And I know it's very ingrained, and that's something that like we can't fight, right? But I can only hope that people in my generation now who are raising their kids, my friends who are raising their kids, will raise with this awareness so that the next generation can change and can be in a safer place. With gurus or outside of it or anything,
And it is. And again, that's the weird thing. It's not, we're talking about, by the way, even what, what you opened up about, right, at that time is also an extreme as well. Like a lot of it, like that ends up happening is that like, it's these it's like a tiny cuts, right? It's all these like tiny things of like, so what are you going to wear tomorrow for the show? And be like, why does that matter to you?
Yeah.
Like, what are you asking
Exactly,
me? Would you ask like the mridangam player like what he is going to wear at the show?
Exactly.
It's like, it's these tiny, tiny things.
It's so subtle. It's in every statement. It's in it's in, definitely women. I think there are so many things, like even with singing, forget even all the other stuff that we've spoken about just now, like, oh, don't like move your hands so much, or like sit straight and like sit, contain. Like there are all these subtle things that are like, oh, don't sing with your hair let down, braid it. And they're like all sorts of like.
But by the way, I don't know if this is generally like a South Indian thing, because I like, especially like when I leave my hair down, it's just like, please dye it up.
Yeah.
It's like a real problem.
Yeah.
It's like, you shouldn't leave your hair down. Like, not that it's like, but it's like a weird, and it's again, of course, it's a generational thing as well. Like, cause definitely like it's much older people that are telling me this as well. Like who are telling me to like, don't leave your hair down, dye it up. And it's, I don't know. I've definitely mainly experienced this when I was in Kerala, where like people are like, and I'd walk, and I remember like, be like, please like tie your hair up. So I like tie it in a ponytail, and I walk out of my house. Not a single woman has her hair down.
Oh my
in
gosh.
my hometown. Literally, either they have the half
the
pony,
half thing. Oh,
or they all have their hair tied up. I literally was like, oh my God, I am the odd one out. But yeah, and thank you so much, by the way, for talking about what you did. And this is for me like a space in which I want to talk about these things, and I think it's important. And I think because I want to talk about it, and I appreciate you wanting to as well. So at least
and I just hope that for anyone at all, like, I mean, it's not even about, you don't have to say anything publicly, but I just hope that there is a safe space somewhere in your personal life where you're not just carrying this burden alone. Because really, like, from this experience, I've also learned that like really more women than I can count have like experienced this, and so no one is alone, and it's not something to be shameful about. You didn't bring it upon yourself. Like,
and the problem is like, it's so rare it's so rare for all of us to talk to each other even.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing. And then if we're not talking to other women about what we're going through, men have no idea. They know even less.
Yeah.
And the moment we start finding out, that guy that did that thing, and then everyone's like, hence me too. I get it now.
Yeah.
But like, it's crazy that we don't even talk to each other about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I also want to put it out there that it's, there are so many like lovely men out there as well. And this
oh my God, I have been nothing but
like my husband who like really supported me through this. Like I couldn't have done it without him. So, I mean, like there are also gems. It's just really unfortunate that there are also real pricks out there. Am I allowed to say prick on your show?
Yeah, you are. Yeah. God damn it.
Yeah.
So what are your plans for 2023 then?
So 2023, I really want to be able to tour home and perform it live. Like one of the things I said in the beginning as well is that I want to be able to spark conversations and dialogues, through the music. And so I really hope home live will be able to do that, like with whoever comes. I want to talk about, And the other thing is, like another thing that I said was the reason why I love the form so much now is also because I've found an in with this where I'm also able to express my everyday emotions or what I'm feeling or what I'm experiencing through the music. And so, I've just started my journey with like writing like Tamil poetry and composing them into melodies and, with melodies.
Wow.
And so like I'm excited to put them out. Like they'll just be singles that I want to put out, but I'm just very happy to be exploring, which is new for me, it's new because in the Carnatic form, like so much of it is based on the repertoire that's been written, centuries ago or like composers now. And, you work with that, like, and you work with the form with that. So to me, it's like, I think it's very meaningful for me that I'm able to now use a language that I love so much that it's my mother tongue. I grew up writing it and, loving it. So to be able to find an avenue to speak about things that matter to me through Tamil, it's something that I'm really looking forward to exploring this year.
Oh my God, that sounds so exciting. So what's the last song you're going to play for us today?
Actually, it's from one of that. It's a song that I've written called Idhuvum Kadandhu Pogum, which means this too shall pass. And no, I'm all about sad music.
No, it's like you like perfectly started it and like perfectly ended it.
Yeah.
It's like I barely need to segue anything.
Yeah.
But
So, yeah, and it just, and the lyrics say like Siritom Aridom, we laughed, we cried, we embraced, and we separated, and this too shall pass. So it just kind of, I guess one of the things, adulting has shown me is that life really lies in the grays. It's the fact that nothing is just always happy or nothing is sad, but like really the beauty of life, which I've come to really love and be in, is the fact that all of these simultaneously exist.
Yeah, and I mean, it when you're talking about the grays, I mean, I think equally, like I've had moments where I'm like, I'm so happy, and then I'm just bawling.
Yeah,
I'm like, but I'm supposed to be
I'm really happy. Yeah, yeah.
You're like, this seems wrong, but
yeah. So I think it's like, and I love that. Like, there's something. I feel like I'm actually addicted to that gray now.
Yeah, right.
So yeah.
Oh my God.
So,
I also feel like I rage more now. I'm like, oh, I'm so pissed off. But then but then I feel like that fire is like, I don't know. It's
I feel that too. And I think that's why music has helped me, because I feel all these things that I feel. And now I've been able to channel that into a song or a piece or music or whatever, that now it lives outside of me. It lives as this, so it's like a cathartic thing, right? So that you're not carrying even happiness, you're not just carrying the weight of that happiness alone. Like it's you can share it through your music, or you can share it through a piece. And I feel like that's why I'm just so thankful I can sing or just experience music. Listen, anything to do with music. I just feel thankful for that. Yeah.
You're like, I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, I'm in the grace.
Okay, so last song is
called Idhuvum Kadandhu Pogum. Idhuvum Kadandhu Pogum Idhuvum Kadandhu Pogum Siritho Kadandhu Pogum. கடந்து போகும் கடந்து போகும் இதுவும் இதுவும் கடந்து போகும்.
Hi, this is Maed Thomas. I know you can't see me with this amazing camouflage that I have on, but don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Made in India.